Well, shalom and hello, friends. Let me just stop the screen share to the Christian Friends of EMUNAH Israel webinar. I can't believe we're into the 60s, almost the 70th week of doing these updates for you. And of course, as always, a lot has been going on. We're going to be joined in a little bit by a very special guest, a dear friend of Melissa and I's, and will become a dear friend of all of you in due course. But what's been going on globally? Well, there's a number of things that have been happening, and a number of people have been speaking into the situation. One of whom is was somewhat of a surprise, and I want to kind of start with this and then kind of unpack it a little bit. Is an individual called Alistair Heath from the Daily Telegraph, who may be familiar to some of you if you're in England. To others, this may be a new entity to you. But Alistair Heath has gone on the record talking about Israel in quite a succinct way. And this is doing the rounds on socials, but he actually wrote an article about Israel's right to defend itself and operate. But let's start here and then we'll kind of unpack some of the other things that are going on in the Middle East at this present moment in time. And then, as always, we'll turn to the scriptures and we'll share more after that. And so we are faced with a scenario that is very, very profound in spite of Israel's size, in spite of Israel's um, turning a region that doesn't have any oil, as Alistair points out. It is not only holding its own ground, but it's actually accomplishing things that the world didn't think was even possible. There is a key to this component is that Israel has been, and the people of Israel, the Jewish people throughout history, have been a targeted people because of whom they represent. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the one who holds the keys to the whole story and is the one who is unfolding his plan and purpose in spite of the nations. Now, nations can choose to be involved in that process, or they can choose to oppose it. And in the coming weeks, we will see that at the UN as the UN General Assembly gathers. This time next week, it will be convening, and no doubt there will be a myriad of hostilities towards Israel stated, and yet, in spite of that, Am Israel Chai, the people of Israel live. Well, let's turn our attention briefly to some of the things that have gone on in the past week or so. One of which is the spokesperson of the Hamas propaganda chief, I should say, Abu Obaida, was taken out, and it was interesting that it was actually Israel that had to acknowledge this because, of course, he was the key guy who would allow and make the nations aware of what was going on propaganda-wise. Well, the IDF and the Israel Security Agency confirmed the targeted elimination of Huda Haifa Kalut, known as Abu Ubaidah, who headed Hamas's military wing propaganda apparatus and served as its chief spokesperson. So he was taken out. In the same window of time, the Houthis leadership was taken out. The Houthis have continued to send drones and try to destabilize Israel and the wider Middle East. And of course, we've heard murmurings again from Iran. Today, Netanyahu was meant to be convening a summit with regard to Judea and Samaria's sovereignty. That meeting has been cancelled or postponed at the very least. And we've also seen two of the hostages of blessed memory have been recovered. In light of that as well, 8 kilometers of tunnels have been destroyed by our friends, the Yahalom unit. We know some people who serve in that unit, and they have destroyed some of those. 8 kilometers of those tunnels. And just to give you an idea of scale, I mean, for those that are not aware, the underground system that was put in place in Gaza is larger than the London Underground system, which is just mind-blowing. If you've ever traveled on the London Underground and enjoyed the joys of the delays that happen on it, you know that takes a long time to traverse. And so it is quite simply astonishing how big that underground network was and how it's slowly being dealt with. So Gaza City, the push is on to get the remaining hostages out, and that's a very valiant and important process. And as a result, IDF reservists have been called up in greater numbers for that. There are other things going on in Lebanon, in Syria, and Iran continues to murmur and grumble. No surprises there, but that is what is going on in a brief kind of overview. And as I said, in the next week or so, we will see the Iranian support probably at the UN and the hostility towards Israel, because the nations don't like the fact, and if I can put it as simply as this, that Israel is a reminder that nations have to answer for their actions in the same way that you are a reminder to your neighbor that there is a responsibility for how we live our lives. Israel is in macro what you are in micro, if I can put it in those terms. Well, let's turn our attentions to the scriptures and Psalm 50. We're going to do a condensed overview of this, and then we'll turn our attention to the fact that we are heading back to school this week in many countries of the world. A Psalm of Asaph. This is Psalm 50. The mighty one, God the Lord, has spoken. He speaks and summons the earth from the rising of the sun to where it sets. From Zion, perfect in beauty, God shines forth. Our God comes and will not be silent. A fire devours before him, and around him a tempest rages. He summons the heavens above and the earth that he may judge his people. Gather to me this consecrated people, who made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens proclaim his righteousness, for he is a God of justice. I have no need of a bull from your stall, or of goats from your pens. For every animal of the forest is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird in the mountains, and the insects in the field are mine. If I were hungry, I wouldn't have a need to tell you, for the world is mine, and all that is in it. Sacrifice thank offerings to God. Fulfill your vows to the Most High, and call on me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you will honor me. He knows the insects, he knows the birds, he knows every living creature, for he created it, and he is the one who is going to fulfill his vows. He's going to make sure that he holds fast to his name, which is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That name hasn't changed, and it won't change throughout all of history. He is the God of Israel, and he that keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps.
Beautiful scripture. Well, it is back to school time in the UK this week and also in Israel, the part of the US where we live. School started a month ago, which feels too early to me after living in the UK for 12 years. But as you can imagine, EMUNAH has a lot to do at back to school time. And one way that we as a Christian community can support the work that EMUNAH does for Israel's neediest family and children is to join in with their back to school campaign. So this time of year, every year, EMUNAH has loads of school supplies and backpacks and shoes and school uniforms to buy for the children that are in their care. Stephen's put the link up here on the screen and we'll make sure we get it in the chat as well. But we would invite you, maybe your children are growing, maybe they're out of the house, or maybe you can add this to the back to school budget if you still have children in the home too. But if you would consider sponsoring, making it possible for one of the EMUNAH children to go back to school with everything they need to succeed this year. We would be most appreciative. If you have any questions about that, you can put it in the chat, but we'll get the link. You can find more info about it on the Israel Gives web page. And now we're going to introduce our special guest for today, which is our friend Abel Taye. Abel serves as the CUFI High School Curriculum Director. Guided by his love for foreign policy and American history, he has worked on different international engagement projects that involve nonprofits, policymakers, think tanks, and nonprofits. He also was a CUFI campus chapter leader and advocate. He believes in strong American engagement in the world, especially in the Middle East. Most importantly, he focuses on cultivating and helping American engagement with the Jewish people by creating working partnerships, developing outreach events to faith community leaders, and through mentoring young professionals. So before we bring Abel on in a moment, we're going to watch a really short video that's going to give you a sense of the type of information that you would learn if you partook in the Israel course, which Abel's going to tell us about today. So here's just a quick video about a snapshot of Israel's history.
5 Arab armies began gathering on Israel's borders. Egyptian President Nasser and the governments of Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia publicly declared their intention to wipe Israel off the map. The United Nations and every ally Israel turned to refused to intervene. Faced with utter annihilation and an Egyptian blockade off of a vital Israeli port, the Jewish state decided to strike first. On June 5th, the Israeli Air Force destroyed Egypt's planes while they sat on the ground. 2 days later, the IDF won the battle for Jerusalem. By June 10th, Israel had defeated the invaders and won control of huge new territories. Most of the land was returned in exchange for peace treaties, but Israel declared that Jerusalem would never be divided again.
Well, it's my pleasure to invite Abel Taye, depending on where you are from, but he's from Ethiopia originally, and he is with us to share his heart for all that he's involved with at CUFI in the Israel course. But I want to begin by him telling us about his first trip to Israel and what took him there and what is his passion. Abel, can you hear us? Are you there? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Stephanie, Stephen, and Melissa. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your invitation. Thank you for having me here. It's an amazing thing that I am able to work with Christians United for Israel. It's an honor for me. It is something that I have been blessed with. To answer your question, Stephen, the first time I went to Israel is with a group of college students, and I was hired by CUFI to be part of the staff. And my first assignment, 3 weeks after that, was to travel to Israel with 30 plus college students. And I always grew up, I always love Israel growing up. I always love the Jewish people. But there is one thing to read about Israel in the books, maybe watching a documentary or hearing about a testimony from others. But it's quite different when you are in Israel. It is a land where God's promises are real. It is evident. And basically, your Bible would become real. I think that's the best I can describe it. I remember that first morning, the night before, I asked the gentleman, the man who was guiding our tour. I said, "What time is the sunrise?" He said, 5:24. So I woke up before 5. I went to uh, the river and I was able to see the sun come out. And it was quite a moment for me personally in significant ways. Obviously, when you are in Jerusalem, if you don't experience the presence of God, even if you are an atheist, there is a higher power you're going to feel by being there. You go to different places, Tel Aviv, you go to Tiberias, you go to the different places. It's just incredible. So that was my experience, and it changed my life forever.
So a bit of how did you get to that point though? Tell us a bit of your backstory, Abel, and how, because obviously you're from Ethiopia, you're now in the US, you're working with CUFI. What is the story of how you got a heart for Israel?
Thank you for asking that. As I said, I grew up in Ethiopia. I grew up in a very well-off family. My mom and dad were very much engaged in government, working. My background basically is a typical Ethiopian kid growing up in a very well-off family. We had our weekends, I can tell you, were with daughters and sons of diplomats, foreign policy experts, ambassadors, leaders, educators, even in the religious side, those who are high up in the Orthodox Church. So it's a very well-rounded family and big family, military people also. So it was a time where I grew up surrounded, knowing about Israel, praying for Israel, and knowing the importance of Israel in history. And my grandfather, especially, was very much. He regrets he didn't have a role in stopping the genocide that happened in Europe. So he was a military guy. He was very much, he always talks about it. So that's how I grew up. But I came to America, and when I came to America, it is for education. That's 2 decades ago. I'll tell you, when I come here, one of the things that I experienced was there is a lot of division about your views when it comes to being pro-Israel, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it until I met a friend of mine who happened to be Jewish, and we attended a conference, the APAC conference in DC. And I was going to school in Colorado. He was also from Colorado. I went to Colorado Christian University. He went to the University of Denver. So on the way back to Colorado from DC, we talked. I saw you at that conference. So we interacted, and he said, let's get coffee after the interaction. We got coffee. And then later on, we got lunch. And then on our third meeting, he said, Abel, I just want you to know I'm Jewish. And I said, Michael, all this time, why didn't you tell me you were Jewish? And he said, we, the Jewish people, are very careful on whom we share who we are. Imagine, I am somebody who came from Ethiopia. America is a beacon of hope, a beacon of civilization, a beacon of freedom. For me to hear in 2008, a Jewish student at the University of Denver is unable to reveal who he is until he really finds out the other person is pro-Israel or doesn't have anything against him. That was something I can't accept. And I said, I need to stand up with the Jewish people. And little after that, my professor, Dr. William Watson, he said, I want you to be involved with Christians United for Israel. And that's how I got involved. And it's been 15, 16 years now.
And you now sit on the chair of looking after the high school students and program, and you've got a Israel course that you run. And I know you're going to take us through some of the topics and lessons that are covered in the Israel course as part of a mini lesson. So share a bit about the Israel course, and I'm just going to make it so you can share your screen if you need to. I don't know if you do need to, but let me do that as well. So just bear me 1 second, and you should be able to share.
Yes. So you can be able to share the course page if you have it with you, the picture, and I can just give a general information. Yes. So the Israel course is one of the tools we have in order to educate the next generation about the importance of standing with Israel. So I want to take a step back and give you a little perspective when I say the next generation. Obviously, the elementary school students are part of the next generation. The middle school students are part of the next generation. The high school students are part of the next generation. But as an organization, Christians United for Israel have been an advocate of standing up with the Jewish state and standing up with the Jewish people in significant ways. Mostly, we have been doing it with pastors and churches and ministries, and the different programs we have include also impacting policy in a federal as well as in a state level. But when you really see, just take one student as an example who have been in a Christian home. When they join college, there is one thing that happens. When a high school student, a Christian high school student in America, graduates from, as a senior student, graduate from their local high school, two silent graduations are also happening. This is what we found out. The first silent graduation is whether they leave their family and go somewhere else and start life, or they go to college. They graduate from their church, meaning the chances they will find another church in a local place they go to is very low. And then the second graduation, silent graduations that happens is kids by the age of 18, they think they can decide by themselves. Obviously, all of us have went through that. So they graduate from their phase. Not only they graduate from their school, they graduate from their church and their faith, meaning at that moment, at that formative years in terms of being an adult, in the first year of being an adult, there are anti-American, anti-God, and anti-Israel forces ready for them, both in the culture that we live in, as well as in American college campuses. So that's why we at Christians United for Israel prepared this course, the Israel course. We see it as a fundamental resource and tool to give it to high school students who are creating their worldview, who are forming their opinion, who are being influenced by media, by culture, and also by celebrity and other big figures, including Wall Street. They get influence every single day. In order for us to fight, if we wait after they get to college, after they become an adult, they would be able to ready, they'll be ready and answer any other thing. We're missing the whole point. So that's why before the enemy gets them with the indoctrination, the falsehood about Israel, the anti-Semitism that we see, we have to win them with the truth. In that way, when the falsehoods come, they will be able to respond.
Yeah, it's such a having looked at it, this is a very comprehensive course, and obviously the high school battle is raging, as is the middle school and the elementary even in our understanding of this. This is something that is permeating society, and as we've seen within Gaza and the so-called West Bank, what is being taught to the Palestinian kids that has resulted in what took place on October 7th started 20, 30 years ago even. We're teaching the Palestinian children to hate the Jewish people. And that has resulted in what we've seen and the tragedy of all that's taken place. And walking in, you can go to any major capital city in the world and you will be able to access books that are actually complete lies and fabrications. So this is vital. It's not only vital for the for believers, but obviously the society at large. And why are you so passionate about reaching the next generation? I know it's written all over you, but what is it that drives you for this next generation?
Thank you, Stephen. You're very kind. Because America has given me so much. To give you a little background personally, my dad was educated in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The same way my grandfather was educated in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and Fort Knox, Kentucky. They became military giants. My dad became a general. My grandfather became a military judge, one of the high court judges, one of the three judges. So they see America's role in the world as vital. Now, let me pause there and bring you to the current reality. Almost 2 years ago, when Hamas attacked Israel, a few hours after that, 30 plus groups, 30 plus student groups came out in one of the most elitist, highly coveted school called Harvard University, condemning Israel. Israel just got attacked a few hours ago. Now, the question we should be asking is, anti-Semitism is real, but we didn't need October 7 to know that. Unfortunately, it revealed how our higher education have been so much filled with hate against Israel, hate against the Jewish people, and the anti-Semitism was rising, and nobody wants to accept it because it was politically sensitive issue in many people's opinion. They don't want to touch it. If you are a pro-Israel student, just a Christian pro-Israel student, you get canceled on campus from different groups. Now, the question, you ask a very strategic question, why am I passionate? These students that did the encampment, that said Israel is the problem, that said Israel is the reason why the Middle East is in chaos, all this, when the Israelis were attacked like that, in a few hours, in 5 years, they're going to be sitting on the board of major organizations. In 10 years, those students, they're going to be our lawmakers. If we don't have a strategic plan to fight this, they're going to be our lawmakers, and they're going to be turning America's back on Israel. We cannot let that happen, because we don't just support Israel because it is a moral case or it is something right to do. It is a biblical reason why we have to support Israel. As Christians, if we don't educate our kids the biblical importance of standing with the Jewish people, somebody is going to educate them not to stand with the Jewish people. They're going to be the one making our laws in a decade or so. We have to fight that, and the best tool is education. That's why we're giving the Israel course.
So run us through the course a little bit. Where does it start, and how does it build to the present day? What's in there? What are some key highlights within the Israel course that would help our listeners today?
Wonderful. Yes, I will be happy to answer that. So the course is a 20 lesson incremental lesson, comprehensively designed to help high school students. When we say high school students, they can be in a private Christian school, they can be in a homeschool atmosphere, or they can be students who go to public school, but they can take it as part of their education. And a mentor, a life coach, or a pastor, someone who can guide that course. An instructor need to be there, obviously, to guide them. The course basically starts with who the Jewish people are. It has 20 chapters. The first one is who the Jewish people are. Basically, it brings the biblical reason all the way going back to the promise God made to Abraham. And that promise is a covenant that he made with Abraham. It continues through Isaac, it continues through Jacob, and then Israel. It continues throughout Moses and all the Old Testament, and it goes on to the current reality. Now, this course gives a very comprehensive approach about what a student needs to learn about Israel, the Christian role, understanding Jewish culture, understanding the Jewish history. Also, World War I and World War II are also mentioned and explained. I would also go further. It also centers on the history of the Holocaust. You see, when you really see that chapter, you will be able to find out that the Holocaust is something that needed to be included in that book, because we really believe if we don't teach history and what happened 8 decades ago in Europe, the next generation would be getting Holocaust denier history. Let me tell you why I say that. I was personally in Poland a few months ago with 25 school administrators. We went to the different places, the Warsaw Ghetto. Well, the uprising started. When you study the book, you'll find out. We went to Majdanek, we went to Birkenau, we went to Auschwitz. It shakes the foundation of our inside, everyone was in tears. These are educators. I want to tell you, a minimum, they have a master's degree. Most of them, they have a PhD. Some of them were still working on their PhD, but they couldn't believe how Christian education didn't include the importance of talking about the Holocaust and preserving that history by teaching it to the next generation. I want to add one element there. With regards to teaching this, when the liberation of the Auschwitz was being broadcasted in a TV, I was looking at, and then a Sky News reporter, Stephen, you would like this, a Sky News reporter decreased her voice in her reporting and said, I see 60 plus Holocaust survivors in this crowd at the liberation of the Auschwitz. And she said, I don't know how many of them would be with us next year. That was the most remarkable statement from a Sky News reporter that I had. If we don't teach what happened 8 decades ago, that's 80 years ago, some of them are still alive, there would be forces who are here in America and around the world who are willing to deny that history. We have to be able to bring that. That's what it brings from the time God spoke to Abraham, who the Jewish people are, to the current reality. The course gives an overall and also depth perspective.
And yeah, you say about denying 80 years ago, there are people already that are denying what happened on October 7th, 2023. There are voices within the social media world that are very, very, oh, this was all fake, this wasn't real. And it's just that it's an absurdity, but it just shows how important education, and particularly Holocaust education, is. Now, that's Melissa's background, and she worked on the Hill at the Holocaust Museum in DC, but the whole understanding of that period of history that was so horrific, so horrendous, is something that if we don't learn the lessons of history, it's the old cliche, we're doomed to repeat them. So what you are doing with the Israel course is vital. And how is it, obviously it's impacting the US, has it got international legs on it as well? Where has it landed? Is it in the UK? Is it in Canada? Where is it being taught?
Yes, so a few churches in Canada and a few churches in Great Britain, where you're from, have asked us. We've been partnering with them. There is also another school in Romania, a Christian school in Romania, that asked us. In fact, 2 days ago, I was in conversation with a friend of mine who is very, very pro-Israel. He is in Spain, Murcia, Spain, I believe. So we are trying to expand this. Every Christian leader who teaches passionately about the Holocaust, they need to get this course, and they need to be armed with this. So that's why CUFI provides it to people. We will love to get these books to hands of educators, school leaders, and also pastors, where they give their churches and youth groups in a different way. They can be able to implement this. Specifically in terms of implementation, I want to say this. It would be very hard to show up to a school and say, we have the Israel course, we are very passionate, please implement it. You know how we're doing it? We're doing it in 2 ways. One, we take this course, this Holocaust, this Israel course, and tell the different schools, you can implement it as part of your history course. It can be a supplemental material. In that way, we'll be able to track how you're doing it, and we do an assessment before the course and after the course. Also, in comparative religion or Bible class, they can implement it because it talks about the Jewish people from the beginning of time to the current reality. When you really see yourself as a Christian educator, from the 66 books we have in the Bible, 64 of them were written by Jewish people. And it is significant, their life, their history, their culture. And God calls Israel the apple of his eyes. And we cannot deny that. It is a fact. And that biblical fact and principle have to be taught to the next generation. And that's why we're implementing it in every way possible.
I was just going to say, you mentioned that you've got a Holocaust course as well, haven't you? But that's not the primary focus of this. You had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we are excited to do this course with our son, who's just starting high school this year. And um, as I've been looking through the course itself, I see that it's such great information. It's laid out in a very clear way, but it's definitely not childish content. Are you finding that adults are using this too in adult Sunday school classes or on their own in Bible studies? It seems like we shouldn't assume that every adult knows this information themselves, because it's such a rich resource for not only biblical information, but also historical information.
Yes, absolutely. So there is a gentleman I know. His name is Kevin Suter. He is the executive director of the Indiana Association of Christian Schools, an organization that is working with us to implement this course. He went over this book and he was really impressed. And he asked if he could give it to his church as part of an adult program where they have Wednesday nights, they go through the course, and we were able to send it to him, and he's implementing it. Another gentleman I talked to was a Bible teacher in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He's been a pastor for 45 years. He studied, he went to seminary, all that. But when he went through to overview, because he was a Bible teacher, he wants to do his own overview before he implements the course. He was telling me he learned something in his 45 years of ministry that he didn't learn. So he was very amazed how it was organized, the way it is comprehensively done, step by step, with quizzes, with follow-ups, with videos, with articles, and additional materials that you can be able to use. And the way to do it, I highly recommend the person can go over it by themselves first. They can go over it in their small group, at a prayer group, or a Bible study, or men's group, or women's group. It is very, very much designed in a way that is interactive and very insightful.
I was just going to say, I have seen it. I looked through it. It's fantastic. And we have good news for those who are our listeners, and you're the first people to be aware of this. On our social medias, if you're not following EMUNAH on social media, I'm going to put in the YouTube link again there. There is going to be an opportunity to potentially win one of 9 sets of the Israel course on the YouTube, as I'm looking after that in particular. If you put that in and subscribe, and then put hashtag Israel course in one of the comments, you'll be entered into the possibility of winning one free set of the Israel course. And Ruth is going to send out an email about details of how you can do that on Facebook and other places as well. Instagram, I imagine, as well, will be one of those options. So there's going to be 9 different sets, and don't just obviously keep it to yourselves. We want to encourage you to let other people know about it, because we do really want the next generation to understand. We're looking forward to watching our son's understanding of Israel grow, and he has been in Israel once when he was a young boy with his even younger sister. She had only turned 3 at the time that we were out there. So looking forward to him having a greater grasp of everything that is Israel related. And I want to bring Ruth into the conversation, just if there's any questions she has for Abel before I'm going to ask you to unmute before we wrap up our time together.
Hi, wow, I can't even speak after Abel. You are amazing. As someone put in the chat, your passion is amazing. And on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people, I would like to thank you and obviously CUFI for everything you do. But Abel, I'm just really impressed. And I have looked at some of the pieces. I haven't seen the whole book, obviously, but it is astounding. And as a Jew to know that groups like CUFI and other groups, other listeners that are on our call who stand up on behalf of the Jewish people and stand with us, not against us. They don't oppose us. We want to be united in God's mission together. It's amazing. So, I have been really, really duly impressed, and I'll most likely get one of those books also and learn something myself, because none of us, we never know enough, and there's always something new to learn. And I think one of the things I am blessed to be a part of this call with Stephen and Melissa and all of our listeners, our weekly listeners, is that I'm learning so much too. And I just feel, certainly in this very difficult time in Israel, I just feel blessed to be a part of the call and to hear that there are people who really do love us and stand by us and appreciate what we are to the nations and what we can get back from you, and that all of this is God's will based on the Torah, on the Bible. So thank you. And Abel, God willing, one day we'll meet. I heard I wasn't at CUFI this year, but thank God you met the Briggs, and you're now a part of the EMUNAH family. Not only are we a part of the CUFI family, but you are a part of the EMUNAH family. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Stephen and Melissa, once again, an amazing show. And to all of our followers out there, thank you. And you should all have, at least for me, you don't have to end up, you should have a great week. But I do want to share one thing, Melissa, by the way, when you brought up the back to school, everyone should know just today, one of our Christian groups, Bridges for Peace, and some of you on this call are Bridges for Peace members or followers, they just made a really very substantial gift towards back to school. And Bridges for Peace here, the international one, has adopted the EMUNAH Neve Landing Home, which is located in Evan Shmuel, which is in the south near Sderot. They were very much engaged when October 7th happened, because they're literally a mile away. And the Bridges for Peace is helping to substantially finance the 63 young boys that live in the Neve Landing home for their back to school. So again, this is our Christian friends who are supporting us and blessing us. So thank you, and shalom from Israel.
Wonderful. Yes. And if you don't get our emails and you are waiting to hear how to enter in to win one of the Israel course books yourself, make sure that you sign up for our email list. If you email Ruth@worldemunah.org, that's Ruth@worldemunah.org, and say that you'd like to be added to EMUNAH's email list, that you will get all the information within the next week or so about how to enter to win one of these free copies of the Israel course. A huge thank you to Abel Taye again for making that possible and for coming on and sharing your story, your passion, your wisdom, and to introduce us to this amazing resource that we can take into our spheres of influence. So thank you, Abel. Bless you in the work of CUFI. Thank you, Ruth, and have a great week. Shalom.